Why, hello. We are moving on to our next president that we need to cover, and that is James Monroe, who is one of my personal favorites, who I think needs to be talked about a lot more. James Monroe, he's born on April 28th, 1758, in Westmoreland County, Virginia, which is around the same place that George Washington grew up. His family is not as wealthy as people like Washington and Madison. Uh, I believe that they did have a small plantation, so he's not going to have that formal of an early education. He does get education from private tutors and at a local school called the Campbellton Academy. In 1744, Monroe is going to enroll in the College of William and Mary, very good college at the time, and his studies get actually interrupted by the onset of the Revolutionary War a year later. So, when the American colonies declare independence in 1776, Monroe will enlist in the Continental Army as just 18. He served with distinction under General George Washington, was very brave and fought valiantly, and most notably in the Battle of Trenton, where he was actually wounded in the shoulder trying to save some of his fellow soldiers. He actually took on several Hessians by himself, and played a key role in the American victory in that battle. So this experience here, his service in the Revolutionary War, really will kind of strengthen his dedication to the cause of American independence, and it's going to develop his lifelong commitment to public service. So after this injury, Monroe is actually going to be unable to return to the front lines, and he takes off duties as an officer. He rises to the rank of major. After the war is over, he continues his studies in law because he's a very smart person, and Thomas Jefferson finds him. So he becomes good friends with Thomas Jefferson. This relationship between him and Jefferson is going to influence Monroe's political ideology profoundly. And it's going to ground him in these ideals of republicanism and states' rights, values that would shape his future political career. Monroe's political career is going to begin in Virginia. He's going to be elected to the Virginia House of Delegates in 1782. He then moves to the Virginia Executive Council, where he's going to gain even more experience. 1783 to 1786, he's in the Confederation Congress. He, like Madison, like Jefferson, does not like the Articles of Confederation. He thinks he thinks they are way too weak. He wants a stronger central government, but he still is wary of excessive federal power. So in 1787, Monroe is actually not a part of the Constitutional Convention. He did participate in debates surrounding the Constitution in Virginia. So he was involved in the state writing of the Constitution, but not the federal writing of the Constitution, because he is still only in his late 20s at the time. So despite these concerns, Monroe ultimately will accept the Constitution. He was initially concerned that it gave too much power to the government, or he thought that the checks and balances might not work out perfectly. So he later becomes a really strong advocate for the Bill of Rights, which he thinks are great because they will protect individual liberties. He works closely with James Madison and helps him draft those. His diplomatic career will begin in 1794 when Washington is going to appoint him the U.S. Minister to France. That was one of the most important diplomatic positions at the time, because at the time French Revolution is in full swing, and Monroe will arrive in France with this very challenging task of maintaining friendly relations between America and France while these very complex political divisions are going on in both America and France. He initially gets a kind of a warm welcome, as France does value the United States as a revolutionary ally. And they appreciate the fact that Monroe actually fought and was wounded in the American Revolution. But Monroe, he has a close association with these French revolutionaries, is going to lead to tensions with George Washington, who really wants to maintain strict neutrality in these European conflicts. So in 1796, because of this, Monroe is going to get recalled. He returns home kind of angry about getting dismissed. But this experience is truly going to help shape Monroe's view that the United States should support Republican and Democratic movements abroad. This is a view that would later inform his support for Latin American independence, which we will talk about later. So, after he gets back to Virginia, Monroe will return to politics and he becomes increasingly aligned with Thomas Jefferson. He opposes the Federalist policies of John Adams. He gets elected governor of Virginia in 1799. He serves until 1802. He continues to align with Thomas Jefferson. He joins Jefferson in fervently opposing the Alien and Sedition Acts, which John Adams did to basically say, I can arrest my political opponents if they say bad things about me. That's very ridiculous, and the Democratic Republicans definitely gained a lot of support because everybody thought that was ridiculous. It went against the Constitution that Adams and the other Federalists had completely supported, and then 10 years later, they thought, oh, we're done. We don't want state rights. We don't want any kind of dissent to be allowed anymore. We're going to suppress it. All right, so then in 1803, Monroe plays a key role in negotiating the Louisiana Purchase, one of the greatest accomplishments in American history, and the Louisiana Purchase, I think, is actually the greatest accomplishment of Thomas Jefferson's presidency. He is able to negotiate it, and it really showcases his diplomatic skills. After Louisiana Purchase, he takes this is a very important foreign policy position, the United States Minister to the United Kingdom, where he is going to seek to resolve the ongoing maritime conflicts between the U.S. and Britain. And he doesn't work. He cannot negotiate a settlement, and his failure to do so is going to eventually lead to the Embargo Act, and the Embargo Act leads to the War of 1812. But he did try and do something. There was something called the Monroe-Pinckney Treaty, which Jefferson rejected because he was real America first and very anti-British. Yeah, he rejected that. That was a mistake. After the War of 1812 begins, he becomes Secretary of State in 1811. Monroe continues to work to defend the American sovereignty against British aggression, even though it was a dumb war, which he probably did understand, but he was a patriot, and he works to highlight the weaknesses in American defenses and infrastructure. He advocates for a stronger military and increased funding for national defense. So Monroe briefly serves as Secretary of War right after the burning of Washington, D.C. He helps organize the defense of the Capitol and plays a key role in planning the campaign that ultimately led to American victories. So he did more than Madison to save the country after the burning of Washington. So by the end of 1812, Monroe is the most experienced statesman in the country. He is the key favorite to become the next president. And once he does become president, he does a phenomenal job. He is elected in 1817. He's the last president of the so-called Virginia dynasty. He runs as a Democratic Republican, and during his presidency, he really made everybody feel good. Like, literally, it was called the era of good feelings. After the Revolutionary War, there was a sense of national purpose. He really promoted it. The economy was doing quite well. On foreign policy, he does the Missouri Compromise, which plays a key role. He admits Missouri into the Union. Wow, he bans slavery at the 36th and 30th parallels. He reconciles with Britain, and he opposes expansionism against the Spanish Empire. He signs the Adams-Onis Treaty with Spain, which allows the United States to secure Florida. Because of James Monroe, we have Florida. Monroe opposed European intervention in these new European countries. He helps found the American Colonization Society, which supports the colonization of Africa by freed slaves. And the capital of Liberia, a country in Africa, is named Monrovia in his honor. All right, so on to some of his economic policies. He kind of supports this Build Back Better type of thing. Was a Build Back Better guy at the time, along with Henry Clay. He works together on that. There's the General Survey Act, which authorizes the president to build a bunch of new roads. He kind of comes up with the first tolls on the so-called National Road or the Cumberland Road. He expands construction of that. He is the guy who starts the Army Corps of Engineer. He spends a lot of money improving the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. There's something called the Panic of 1819. It's the first major depression, but he's actually going to really fix this because the country's plunging into debt. He does something called the Tariff of 1824, which is part of the American system advocated by Henry Clay. Second Bank of the United States is created. So really just did a lot for the country. Yeah, he is able to protect American industry from cheaper British commodities, boost American manufacturing, really helps the United States come back from that brief panic of 1819. He wins re-election in a landslide in 1820. Very popular president, era of good feelings. I think he should be ranked a little higher. I think maybe because of the Native American policy and maybe because he was a slave owner. He was the first guy to say that some natives should be moved out west, but he didn't want to do. He later opposed Indian Removal Act under Jackson after he left office. So yeah, Monroe, very good president. He should be ranked higher than he is. I think he's probably a top 10 president for me. He's usually ranked about 10. I would put him probably 6, 7, 8, somewhere around that, equivalent to people like Harry Truman and Dwight Eisenhower. My only issue with him, he was a slave owner, and he was a slave owner, and some people also do not like the colonization society that he was deeply involved in. They think that his only reason for that was being a racist. And the fact that he wanted to kick these freed slaves out of America. But I don't know. Just solely based on policy, very good president. He was a very skilled diplomat. Foreign policy, the Monroe Doctrine, is still one of the most well-remembered and well-respected foreign policies of pragmatism, support for democracy, and non-extreme and anti-interventionism. It's just a great view, and I think Monroe is one of these people who holds a diverse spectrum of views. He knows how to compromise. The Missouri Compromise was negotiated primarily by him. Yeah, he's someone who our entire country should learn for. Kamala and Trump and all these politicians preaching the words of division these days, they really need to learn from James Monroe. I have great respect for Mr. Monroe, and I think he is one of our nation's greatest presidents. So this is the first president on this list that I really, truly love. I love George Washington, and I actually am not a big fan of Jefferson or Madison. I encourage you to check out my previous videos where I explain but I love James Monroe. He's great, and I hope this video helped you understand more about why he is such a great president and why he deserves more respect and just basically what he did. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the election day tomorrow. Thank you.